Hello, assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good morning, and in this video, we would like to tell you about teaching listening and speaking. And this group consists of three people. That is Fabiyan, Junino, Christina, Natalia, and me as the moderator. And this video started with me delivering teaching listening. So, what is listening and why it's so important? Listening is the process of attaching meaning to sound. Although speaking is the most important communication skill, the ability to listen is more necessarily in the process of learning. More importantly, the act of skillful listening is the basis of developing intelligence. Listening can be seen primarily as the active use of language to access other people's meaning. Just like Cameron Linus said in 2001, we hear with our ears, but we listen with our minds. For example, every day we hear many noises and sounds. For example, bird singing, truck passing, clock ticking, and maybe machine or phone or something like that. Yet we pay little attention to it because they are not essential to any specific learning. However, we listen at sounds or voices when we want to remember or understand specific information for immediate or related purpose. So we go into the next page. Listening as one of the four language skills. When we talk about language learning, we often talk about the four language skills that is speaking, listening, reading, and writing. We can further distinguish the skill by stating that listening and speaking is the oral skills, while the other one is the written skills. We can also distinguish between the skills and their direction. As you see, as we know, listening and reading are receptive skills because the focus is on receiving information from outside source, while the other one is productive. Some people think that because children do not produce sound when they are listening, that is listening passive, but that is not true, since learners can and should be actively engaged in listening and task activities. And then listening as a foundation for other skills. The relationship between listening and speaking is clear because both are oral skills. By listening, children are preparing to replicate the sound when they speak. By developing good listening skill, children are able to match the sound with the corresponding symbols when they decode or interpret the words. As you see on the table, skills can listen closely to a story, and then how it prepares for reading. Children tries to comprehend the stories. And then we go into the next page. The development of listening skills. Listening are basically preparing children to able to read. As the paper said in 1993, listening comprehension utilized many of the same processes necessary to read and comprehend story. When a teacher shares a story with the children and helps them to develop listening comprehension skills, she also working on their reading readiness skills. Listening comprehension utilizes many of the same processes necessary to read and comprehend a story, while listening capacity refers to an informal measure of one's ability to comprehend spoken language in the context of a story being told or read aloud, Gunning in 2003. As a foundation for reading, we need to develop children's listening comprehension and listening capacity. By developing listenings that focus on phonological awareness, that is phonological, it is basically the foundation for learning. It is ability to read. It is ability to recognize and work with sounds in spoken language. It really helps them in the future reading learning, since it helps them easier to decode or interpret words. And then auditory patterns. Another way to think about relationship between listening and reading is to consider the fact that it is needs to recognize the pattern in order to read. We know that reading is about the pattern. Detecting the auditory and phonological patterns in language will make children better prepared. For example, which sound is the same with lake or cake or take, and then which sounds are different, etc. To simply put, listening and reading, the relationship between both of these skill is that listening helps children to distinguish words in reading, just like lake, cake, or take. And then we go into the next page. The important things in teaching listening for young learners. The first one is, although listening is a receptive skills, the students are not and should not be passive while listening. In other words, they should be engaged and or work in the listening task actively. The students should be engaged with different listening tasks according to their age, learning styles, and listening capacity and phonological awareness. The language teacher should train the student to listen to the English words carefully. And then the teacher should train young learners to follow simple instruction to get them ready to develop other skills. And then different listening tasks should be addressed in class. For example, listen and do, listen and identify, listen and draw, and etc. It is important to embed listening into stories, especially games, and then maybe songs. They might not understand. They might not understand every word, but they can understand the meaning of the context by visualizing the context or material being delivered. I think that's all about my material. The next material will be delivered by my friends.
Okay, friend, in here I want to explain about the classroom techniques and activity listening. First is total physical response, or we can now is TPR. TPR was created by Dr. James G. Esser. This method tries to focus attention that encourages students to listening and respond to get the target language commands spoken by the teacher. In one other word, TPR is a language learning method that builds coordination between speech and action. TPR tries to teach language through physical activity. So, total physical response, or TPR, is also a learning technique that allows students to acquire new English vocabulary by listening to the executing command sentences. In TPR activities, students are not required to speak, but the teacher gives the commands and commonly repeats and reviews them until the student can carry out the commands without difficulty. Students prefer and feel successful when the teacher provides constant support, and exemplifies also remove pressure on students to speak new words. And then although TPR can be used on students at all levels, this TPR is very usable both of the students who still have a lack of understanding in English or who don't understand it all, because in this TPR, what will be done in pronunciation as well as the action. Therefore, in TPR, it is very important to use and gesture and face expression. Okay, for example, like this. The teacher can comment like, sit down, or stand up please, or run. Okay, that is a view of this example of TPR. So let's move to the other types of TPR.
The incy wincy spider went up the water spout. Down came the rain and washed the spider out. Up came the sun and dried up all the rain. And the incy wincy spider went up the spout again.
So, after we watching this video, we can conclude that the TPR songs and finger play is the method that use music and fingers. Here the children will play a song and then imitate a movement by using their finger according to the line of the tune, like the video Spider-Man climbing, and then the student will be playing with the finger to imagine the climbing. One, two, climbing, like that. Okay, and then the second TPR is TPR storytelling. Let's go to watching this video.
Show me your turtle. Here is a turtle. He lives in a shell. He likes his home very well. When he gets hungry, he comes out to eat.
Okay, after we watching this video, we can conclude that what? TPR storytelling is a method of teaching foreign language. TPRism uses the measure of reading and storytelling to help students learn the foreign language in classroom setting. Like we can see from this video, when the teacher to want to imitate it about the baby, we do wow baby like this. Okay, from this video we can see that the teacher will be tell a story to the student while giving the body gesture to movement the arms to the make student understand what things he's reading. Okay, I think that's all about the classroom technique and activity on listening class.
Okay, and the next material is about teaching speaking to young learners. And before we know about the teaching speaking for young learners, we must know about the meaning and the real meaning of the speaking itself. The speaking is a process of building and sharing meaning through the use of verbal and nonverbal symbols in variety of contexts. So, we can conclude that the speaking is the activity doing by someone to deliver their meaning or to deliver their idea to other people or to communicate to other people about their opinion. And after we know about the meaning of speaking itself, we can enter to the next material which is about the speaking and young learners. First of all, as we know that the young learners is time for them to play with their friend in their environment, like in their school or in their home with their friend. And we can conclude that play is a vital and important aspect of a child development. And the speaking is one of way for them to play. In this case, is playing with sounds and the word. So the children, while they play, they can use the speaking activity to communicate with their friend or with their close people, like their family or their parents. And when children beginning speaking their experience and play with their utterance that are made to form word and phrases, like example, bye-bye and goodbye. So before this young learners can manage the sentence what they want to say, they will play with their vocabulary, their lack vocabulary to make a simple sentence like bye-bye, go bye-bye and others. And according to Cook in 2000, there are many different ways that children play with words and language, beginning with the ticking rhyme that they hear as babies and continuing with the other sort of play which involve both the form and meaning of language. And the next material is about the background of teaching speaking. Speaking is equally important children's overall language development. Young learners are like sponge. They soak up everything what they say, what people say, and what they hear about something people say. And thus clear and correct pronunciation is of vital importance, since young learners repeat exactly what they hear. So, in teaching speaking, we must give the young learners the correct pronunciation speaking, so they can learn the good thing and the right thing. So to teach speaking to young learners, we can use 4 media such as a song, poem, rhyme, and chant. And the 4 media is a wonderful way of making students sing or talk, and at the same time and continuously work at their grammar, vocabulary, and pronunciation. So with the 4 media that I have mentioned before, the student can improve their grammar, their vocabulary, and their pronunciation also. And as the teacher, to make the teaching more effective by using this media, they can use the other method like a TPR or total physical response. So the children or the young learners can use their gesture when they say something to others or they speaking about something. So in the next material is about the micro skill in learning speaking to young learners. Beside the micro skill of speaking, there also a micro skill in speaking. There are 7 micro skill in speaking. The first is about the pronunciation, and the second is about the pragmatic, and the third is a phonetic and phonology, and the fourth is a turn taking, and the fifth is a vocabulary, and the sixth is spelling, and the last is about grammar. What is grammar? Why is grammar in the last? Because I think this grammar is the hardest aspect that the young learners can understand about the new language when they study that language. The next material is about the development of speaking skills. The development of speaking skills, young learners, since they're still young, we still call they young, their speaking equipment has not yet developed perfectly. That it will probably have a limitation in speaking. They will have a limitation in speaking. The speaking equipment here is like their teeth or their tongue and others speaking equipment. But however, according to the Bird Song in 1999, however, they have a clear advantage when it comes to pronunciation if they begin learning English as a foreign second language at the early age. So the young learners have the advantage when they learn English from the early age, because they're still young. They can catch any word what they hear, and they can understand about that. And the last material is about avoid unrealistic expectation. What is unrealistic expectation? Unrealistic expectation is for children learning English should not be greater or more demanding than the expectation for children learning to speak in English as their native language. So we as a teacher or as a guide for young learners in teaching speaking, we must not demanding more than their other students who have English as their mother tongue or as their first language. Because that will be different. And in this presentation, I'll also take the 2 issues that impact the native speakers. The 2 issues is including one issue is mean length of utterance, or we can shortly called by MLU. Mean length of utterance is the number of morphemes found in a symbol of child utterance. So, as a teacher, we must know about the mean length of utterance that produced by our student or our young learners. So we can cannot demanding much because they're still in the process of study about that language. And the second is about the pronunciation and young learners. The pronunciation, when young children are learning to speak in English as their native language, they sometimes have a difficulty in articulating any word, some word like maybe they and others. It can be because maybe because the speaking equipment has not developed perfectly, that I said before. Okay, I think that's all from my explanation. I'm sorry if I have some mistake, and the next material will be delivered by my friend. Thank you.
Hi! Now we are in classroom technique and activity of speaking class. So, okay, focus in this. What is audiolingual method? This audio language method is one of methods in preparing the language. The audiolingual method is a method in teaching foreign language that emphasizes listening, comprehension, speaking, reading, and writing. But in this presentation, we are focused to the speaking class. This method is based on the behaviorist theory, namely the theory of behavior change that comes from experience. So, the keyword is change that comes from experience. This method is also a teaching style used in teaching foreign language, which is recognized that certain traits or characteristic or living things can be transmitted or reinforcement system that emphasizes the teacher will be listening and speaking before reading and writing. For example, this method is dialogue or using puppet in introduce dialogue on fishbird technique. This method is a big step in the language teaching methodology. I'm to communicative competence in language learning. But in this audiolingual method, it does not focus on teaching vocabulary. Students are built to practice spontaneous use of grammar, language forms, and patterns they have never heard to believe. Okay. Second is communicative language teaching or CLT. What is CLT? Yeah, CLT is an approach to teaching foreign language that emphasizes the concept of interaction, both in the process and in the objective of the learning process. Historically, this CLT emerged as a response to the audiolingual method or ELM, and the first method like I explained, which was considered imperative in language learning. This method differs from the understanding that language is a tool for the communication, not just to set the rules. Therefore, language teaching should stick to the understanding. Namely, learning a language is learning to use a language, not learning about the language. CLT teaching theory, according to communicative approach, so that the learning process can take place, it must be emphasized on the importance of the variable below. Communicative language teaching activities that invite real communication to promotion learning. Assessment activities in which language is used to carry out the meaningful task and support the learning process. Meaningful and authentic language increase student motivation the learning. Oh yeah, CLT goals is CLT has a several objectives to be achieved, including first, student can use language as a tool to communicate. Second, student can use language as a tool to express something. And the last is student can use language expression appropriately when they're communicating. So I think that's all about the classroom technique and activity of speaking class. I think that's all. If there are some mistake, I'm so sorry. Thank you so much. Bye bye.